I just wanted to speak a little Spanish because sometimes, even when I first started this company that I'm going to tell you guys about, they were asking me why Spanish. A lot of my students did not know that there were people that have the same skin complexion as me, spoke Spanish. A lot of people don't even know that there's a country in Africa, Equatorial Guinea, where the majority of the language spoken there is Spanish. So I just wanted to give you guys that feedback and why the Spanish language was important to me. So again, my name is Andrea Scott. I am the owner and CEO of Smile Big Dream Bigger. Smile Big Dream Bigger is a bilingual education program. So we provide both English and Spanish tutoring services and academic resources for children in pre-K through 2nd grade. So I'm not originally from the DMV area. I recently relocated and I brought my business with me. I started off teaching at the age of 21. Yes, I was a nerd. So I started teaching at the age of 21, fresh out of college. And I remember I had got my degree in journalism and Spanish. I just wanted to write and just be on TV. But one of my teachers told me that I should take a Spanish immersion trip. At that time, I was part of, so before I got into high school and went to college, I was part of a deseg program, so a desegregation program. I bet you guys are thinking like, wow, how old are you? You were part of that? Yes, I was part of that. So that means that I grew up in the inner city of North City, St. Louis, very close to where Mike Brown was murdered. So I grew up there and they had a program which was called DSEG for short, where inner city elementary students could go to a predominantly white school. So my parents, well, my mom thought that it would be great if I had that opportunity. So every morning I got up at 3 a.m. just to be able to catch a bus at 6 a.m. to go all the way into the county so that I could have what my family thought was a better education. Because my pre-K through kindergarten through 4th grade, I would have to walk down the streets where you see bears hanging. At that time, bears were hung because those were many people were killed right there. So imagine a young kid walking to school every day having to face murder and like having to see that. So my parents didn't want that for me, so they enrolled me into that program. So when I got into that program, that was the first time ever I had heard of different languages. At this predominantly white school where I was the only black kid in my classroom, I mean, there were other kids that were part of the program, but I barely saw them. So I'm in this school where they're introducing all these new languages. I fell in love instantly with Spanish. I'm like, oh, this is great. And at that time, a show called Dora the Explorer had just came out. Yeah, so now you guys are getting how old I am. So Dora the Explorer had just came out and I was so excited. So I would go home, which was again in the North City of St. Louis, go home and just speak, sing songs in Spanish. And my other friends who were not able to participate in the program, there were rules. Everyone can be part of the SEG program. They were like, what are you learning? Because at the inner city schools, they were not teaching any foreign language until the students got into high school. So I was giving that opportunity, just me and my family and others who were in that program, we were given that opportunity to learn languages. So fast forward, I love Spanish, it's very easy for me. But when I go to this when I go to college and my teacher is telling me to go to a foreign country, I had never even left St. Louis before, never even been to Six Flags, never even been on a plane. So I went to Costa Rica. I went to Costa Rica and I struggled the most. I struggled because it was hard now. They were making sure that I pronounced hola bien, because at first I was using my Spanish slang and saying, hola, ¿cómo estás? And they were like, ¿qué tontería? ¿Qué haces? Mi mamá tica would always tell me that. My mama tica is like a host parent in Costa Rica. So I struggled, and again, I was in Costa Rica, and I was in Heredia. There weren't that many black people. So then I was able to go to Limon. Limon was like, it felt like home, because I didn't start seeing people like me. So I graduate, my Spanish is improved, I'm going back home to graduate, I'm just going to now be this bilingual journalist. So then this school opens in the inner city of St. Louis, and it's called Immersion School. And I'm like, they're gonna teach kids in the inner city different languages. That had never happened before. So I went there, and the 6 years I was there, the kids today did not know that I was from St. Louis. They did not understand why someone who had this complexion like I did was speaking Spanish. So even today, so after working as an educator, I spent my first 6 years teaching pre-K, first, second, third, pretty much everything. But then I realized that some students who were not in the inner city or who parents could not participate in that immersion school wanted to learn Spanish. So that's when I created Smile Big, Dream Bigger, LLC. But before I created my company, what happened around the time of my first book that was published, Smile Big, Dream Bigger, it was the murder of Mike Brown, and schools were closed and no one was talking about it. Again, in my school, I was the only African American there, and a lot of the people that were from different countries, these type of things didn't happen in their country, so they didn't know what to tell the kids. I had an 11-year-old telling me, what's the point of me learning Spanish if I'm going to die before I'm 18? So when he said that, it really changed a lot in my heart, and it really changed me. So I stopped teaching. I left math, English, Spanish, all of that alone. I just started hearing what they were saying. So we had a heart-to-heart, and then all of a sudden, all of those thoughts, all of that conversation that we had, I turned that into a book. I turned it in the book because I knew what they were saying, and me sharing my story with them was the first time we had that connection. I knew where they were coming from, they knew where I was coming from, they finally realized that I was from St. Louis, and then eventually the school did what they call an immersion trip. So we had kids that were in 5th grade finally going outside of the country. So I'm gonna say outside because in the Spanish curriculum, they only went to Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is still part of the US, but if they took the French class, they went to France. If they took the Chinese curriculum, they went to China. So my students came to me and was like, I can't afford to go there. I can't do that. You guys are asking for too much. Like, my mom and dad can't afford to take this trip. So the book that I was planning on producing, I printed all my copies, I sold them, and my first book, all the proceeds took my students to their first immersion trip to Puerto Rico. So they didn't take me with them, but it was okay, thank you. And so basically, I wanted for young Black and brown kids to have opportunities that most people still today did not have, but those opportunities in their community. And so when that happened, I didn't want them to have access to books. I came to DC because I was asked to take on a program where I was going to I'm creating a curriculum for undocumented immigrant children. So there's a program going on to where instead of the students like waiting, or the kids waiting into like these retention centers, they go into small organizations and we give them like pretend school. And what I realized is that, again, all of those kids are Afro-Latinos. The majority of undocumented immigrant students that or children that are coming are kids, again, that look like me, and they will ask me every day, who are you? Because for them, they've never seen a Black person who spoke Spanish but were living here, but I didn't speak Spanish like them. So they had never held a pencil before, they had never did any of these things before. So instead of writing books, I started writing academic curriculum that would be useful for them. So basically, I just create curriculum, my team and I create curriculum that students can learn from, and it can teach them how to dream. Because I want them to have opportunities that I never had in my community where I want to be, instead of parents having to leave their community to get better resources for their students or their children. So I don't want to take up too much time, but again, I'm over here. I have all of my products, the books, the flashcards, the academic resource, and the book of the month for January and February is called The Bigger the Fro, the More I Know. And the word fro means finally realizing originality. All of you are original, and thank you for having me.